Hi and welcome back to the Free Swatches channel. In today's video I'm going to be taking apart the Omega Dynamic chronograph that I bought in the last video. So this watch cost me about £870 on eBay and it's been brought in not working as a project. Please go back and have a look at the previous video if you haven't seen that, because you'll be able to see the watch and hear the story and so on. But in today's video what I want to concentrate on is getting to the bench, taking the watch apart, and we're going to have a look at the movement. This watch has a split chronograph movement, so I'm going to be looking at the movement itself to work out what the problem is with the watch, but also we're going to have a look at the chronograph module itself. So I'll be able to show you all those things in the video. That's all coming up in a second. So let's get over to the bench and we'll get straight onto it. Okay, so we've got the watch on the bench now. This is it, the Omega Dynamic chronograph. So you'd have seen this in the last video. It's I'm really quite pleased with it. It's a nice looking example for this watch. It's one of the last Omega chronographs to feature the tritium dial hands. Looking at it closely now under the eyeglass, there are a couple of little marks in the tritium, which isn't surprising for a watch of its age. I'll have a look at those and see if I can improve them or whether to leave them or not. The other thing I noticed is a little chip in the corner there, which when I do the case work I'll have to get that out as well. But overall we're looking good. So what we need to do obviously is get this watch turned over. I've loosened the back in advance just to make the video look all smooth and seamless. And I'm going to take the back off now. The back, as I've mentioned in the last video, needs some work. It's someone's tried to get in and they've made a bit of a mess of it. They've just caught it, but it's nothing that I can't resolve fully. I can regrain this edge with what I do is to put it onto a lathe, watchmaker's lathe, and then spin the case back, and then I can grind this edge down and get rid of the marks that have gone on there. Right, so I'll put that to one side. You'll see here we have a dust cover. So I'm just going to tip the dust cover off. Oh, just to mention, Omega always quite amused me on this. They put the Omega part number on the dust cover here. It's quite handy if you're a watchmaker. It's actually got the part number engraved on it. It'd be really nice if all components had that on there, because then you could just make life really easy for ordering parts. But anyway, there we go. That's that. So we'll tip our dust cover off, and there's the movements. So in order to move forward now, what I've got to do, we've got to reposition the camera. Get the camera overhead so that you can see the movement a bit better, and then we're going to start to take the movement out of the case and have a look and see what's going on and what the problem is with the watch not working. Okay, so I've got you over the top now and we can have a look at the movement, hopefully be able to see what I'm going to do. So the first job is to get the movement out of the case. A watch movement is normally held into the case with something called casing clamps and casing clamp screws, which are located here and here. So the first job for me is just to undo those screws. So let's just start by doing that. So that's one done, and then as you can see it's under pressure. And the reason there's some pressure there is because if it wasn't under pressure the movement would be loose, and obviously you'll notice that when you're wearing the watch. And there's another screw over here which we will loosen up. So there we go, both those screws are now undone. To excuse the noise, I'm just getting some tweezers, and we're going to remove those now. So we'll just take that screw out, screw there, and the casing clamps need to come out. As you'll see, they have like a part that goes into the case, and that secures the movement into the case itself. So now we've got rid of the casing clamp and the casing clamp screws, I can remove this movement ring here, which just obviously fills the gap between the movement and the case. So the next job now is to take the stem out. So the stem, which is this part here connected to the crown, goes into the movement, and it's located with something called a setting lever, which can be accessed through this hole here. What I need to do is to press down in this hole, which will then press the setting lever out of the way of the stem and allow the stem to be removed. So I'm going to use this little needle oiler for that. So that goes into the hole, press down, and I pull the stem. As you can see, the stem comes out. If I just put this on top, you should be able to see there's a little area here, and that's where the setting lever holds the stem into place. Good, so now that's done, we should be able to just tip the movement out effectively onto here, and hopefully we'll all clear of the case. Now I've got the movement in the movement holder, and we've turned it over, and we're ready to take the movement off. So you'll see these big screws, there are 3 of them, and we just need to loosen those off. When we do that, the movement will become free from the module. You don't just have a screw here, you have a screw and a spacer. So the spacer fills in the gap between the movement and the module. So those three are now loose, and I can now obviously remove those out of the way, and there's our little spacer there. So just get rid of the other ones, and then I should be able to lift the movement off and free up the movement from the module. There we go. So just gently lift that up. So there we go. So if we turn that round, what you can see on here, this is the pinion that actually drives the module from the movement. So when this is turning, this little brass pinion actually turns a set of wheels in here, and so that will be turning the seconds, the small seconds hand all the time, which in turn is obviously turning the wheels for the hour and the minute as well. This outer section is a separate set that's used for running the chronograph. So this pinion is just interference fitted onto the second wheel, which is the wheel in the train that is turning at one rotation every 60 seconds. Hence how, that's how the watch is driven, and it's just interference fitted on there. So if this was a normal movement that was fitted, or it is a normal movement, but if it was fitted to a three-handed watch without the chronograph module, then this would actually have the second hand fitted directly to it. And rather than having this brass wheel here, you would have an hour wheel and a central cannon pinion for fitting the hour and the minute hands. So effectively this is a standard ETA 2892 movement, but the only difference is that these parts are changed in order to drive the module that we've got underneath. Okay, so I'll just put this to one side for now. We need to diagnose the fault with this, which we'll do in a moment. But before we do that, I'll just show you the inside of the chronograph module. Here we have the module, and it's it's all ready to be taken apart. So what you have here is effectively a chronograph sandwich. You have a plate here, and then this plate on the top, and all the components are held between the two plates. The first thing that I've had to do before I take this off is to put the chronograph into an engaged position so it's running, because when it's reset, all of the components are under tension. So if I were to take this off in the reset position, then a lot of parts will be flying off everywhere, which obviously isn't ideal. So there are just 3 screws that hold this plate in, so I'm just going to undo those now, and then I can show you what we have inside here, because they have managed to sandwich quite a lot of parts into these modules, as it's responsible not only for the operation of the chronograph, but also for transferring the timekeeping, as it were, from the movement itself up into the hands. Right, so I've loosened all 3 of the screws off, and 2 of them have fallen off, and that's the 3rd one gone now. So now is the moment where I take this plate off. So it's a case of just being very gentle, because obviously I don't want the parts to fly off everywhere. And there we go. That's worked out quite well. So now you can see what we have inside of the module. So you'll see a wheel here for the minute recorder. You've obviously got the centre seconds wheel is there for running the seconds of the chronograph. This is the hour wheel, which has the hour hand on it. If I just remove that, and that's also removed the cannon pinion. I don't know if you can see that. There's a cannon pinion there that holds the minute wheel. So it's those 2 parts off. So this is the setup. Everything else that you can see, these levers here, are all to do with starting, stopping and resetting the chronograph. So they're obviously under tension, because when you press the chronograph to start it, then the components have to return back, and the same for the reset as well. When that's pressed in, that has to get out of the way. So all you see there is just components to start and stop and reset the chronograph, and the timekeeping as well. It's quite involved, but because of the way it's designed, because everything has to be sandwiched in between these 2 plates, the arrangement is quite involved. You see a part just flown off there, just touched that little lever there, and it's just sprung off. That's okay, I can fit that back on. Right, so what I'm going to do now off camera is I'm going to obviously disassemble this. I'm going to take all the parts off, and we'll get this into the cleaning machine and get everything fully cleaned before reassembly. Okay, so I'm going to do some more work on the movement now. So this is what would normally be called the dial side of the movement, even though the dial doesn't actually go on here. It goes on top of the module, which goes on top of this bit. What I need to do is to take apart the keyless section, because I have a suspicion that the winding pinion is the problem here. So we're going to start by taking this screw out here, and then what we need to do is have a look underneath or take the parts out, and then we can have a look at the winding pinion itself and see if that's the problem. So we start off by taking this off, and then we've just got to remove the other parts. So I'm now going to take these keyless components out because we need to have a look at this winding pinion. So let's start by removing those in order to get a bit closer. So we have a screw here for the setting lever spring, which I'll remove. And the setting lever spring can jump out like that. This is called the yoke, this part, which I'll just take out. And we have our setting lever itself. And now I should be able to just remove the stem, and then we can get to the winding pinion. Right, so that is the problem. It's quite damaged. In fact, it's only got about half of its teeth. So there lies the reason why this watch isn't working. It's lost a number of its teeth. So what we need to do is to replace this part, but also need to go through the whole movement and find out where these teeth are, because these are going to be somewhere in and amongst the movement. So that will be something that will get covered as part of the service when all the movement is taken apart. But that's certainly the culprit and the reason why this watch isn't working. But on the upside, it's also the reason why I got the watch cheaply, because if it wasn't working, if it was working rather, it would have obviously been a much better price than what I paid for it. Okay, so we've had a look at the movement and the module now, and I'm really happy with the way this has turned out. Admittedly, I've got to replace this winding pinion here, which has lost most of its teeth. I've got to service the movement and find the teeth, but for me it's quite a good result because there's no real drama. It's just a straightforward service and one part that needs to be replaced. So yeah, it's a good result. Obviously it would be nice if the watch was working, but then on the other side, I wouldn't be able to get the watch for the price I got it for if it had been fully working, because I think the reason it was cheap was because obviously you're entering into a risky unknown situation when you buy something like this and you don't really know if it's going to be working or not. So yeah, really pleased with that one. Well, thanks so much for watching the video. I hope that was of interest to you. It was great to be able to show you the split chronograph module and also to have a look at the movement and see what was wrong with it. What I'm going to do now is obviously take care of the repairs that need to be taken care of and to service the movement fully before the watch is ready to be presented for sale. So in the next video you'll see the finished article. I've also got to buy a strap for the watch, something that's going to be suitable and close to the original one. So I've got that to do as well. So as soon as we've done all that, there'll be another video up and we're going to be putting this watch up for sale. So thanks again, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye for now.